A haunted cemetery, a shadow found behind a tree, and the tale of a witch that was hung for her crimes. Welcome everyone to Weekend Escapade. We are in Lafayette, Oregon, at the Masonic Cemetery, with a haunted vibe and a find behind a tree that we found absolutely chilling. Come along with us and share this tale of the Witch of Lafayette. The legend is said that the town of Lafayette, Oregon has been cursed since the 1800s, when a woman was accused of witchcraft and then, of course, hung for her crimes. Before her execution, it was said that she placed a curse on the town, saying that it would burn down 3 times. And since then, it has burned down in its entirety twice. Those who were scared of the curse that she placed wonder if it will happen again. And until this day, her ghost is seen roaming the town cemetery. Another version of the legend is that in 1886, a woman and her son killed a woman's boyfriend, and her son was arrested for that alleged crime. In this version of the story, while her son was being hung, the mother screamed that the town would burn down 3 times. And again, it has twice. Now, just a few frames back is where I saw that shadow person behind a tree. And it's no joke. I went over this video at least 50 times. So I challenge you to find that shadow behind that tree and let me know in the comments below. It's tough to see in peaks around the tree. Richard Maple and his mother Ann and his wife Julia. This is the real story. They moved to Lafayette in 1885, and there were no jobs available at the time. And Richard was unable to find a job or keep a job if he did. He turned to a life of crime, and allegedly he was a suspect of multiple robberies. And between 1885 and 86, his mother Ann became involved with a local store owner, David Corker. Unfortunately, on November 1, 1886, Corker was found hacked to death by an axe, and his store had been pillaged, and the town sheriff's Harris brought Richard in for questioning. Richard was not a fan of Corker at all, and Richard continued to plead his innocence. Richard, not relenting, made a claim that the evidence had been planted in his home by the sheriff to frame him. But neither his mother nor his wife would stand behind him and stated that he was not home when the murder was being committed. Richard was subsequently convicted for first-degree murder, and on April 9, 1887, his mother Ann was indicted as an accomplice. But a lack of evidence resulted in the charges against her being dropped, and by November 11, 1887, Richard was set to be executed. And he was hung in a location next to the county jail, and 30 people bore witness to the death. Sheriff Harris ordered that Richard be executed with a black hood over his head, and Richard desperately yelled one last thing out into the crowd: "Murder, and may God judge you all." Unfortunately for Richard, when the trap door was released, the knot slipped under his chin, and instead of breaking his neck, he was only slowly strangled to death over the span of 18 minutes. Now, it is true that during Richard's execution, his mother Ann shouted into the crowd that the town would never prosper again and that it would burn. Richard was buried at the Oddfellows Masonic Cemetery here in Lafayette. Now, Richard's family moved out of town after his execution, and several years later, the home that they lived in was burned to the ground. And an axe that was covered in dry blood was found in that location. And it looks like that confirmed what had happened. Now, it is true that there was an execution and a hanging here in Lafayette, but who haunts the cemetery is yet a mystery. There have been many people that have investigated this cemetery and found many paranormal activities. People who have visited this location have been scratched, touched, and a voice has been heard saying, "Run away." And the only thing that we really saw was the shadow that moved behind that tree. And I can't wait to see what you say in the comments about that. Now, our experience was a little different. As we walked up the long road to get to the cemetery, the woods are very scary. And this location made many noises, as it was very wet and damp that day and rainy. And that kind of weather in a cemetery like this always makes it kind of creepy. One thing I will say is that at night or during the day, and I've been here both times, it is just as haunted looking either way. So you be the judge and you look up the stories and find out who's haunting the cemetery for yourself. We hope you enjoyed this adventure to the Lafayette Cemetery, the Masonic Haunted Cemetery in Lafayette. And until our next adventure, goodbye from Weekend Escapades, and we'll see you in the next one. Have a happy Halloween. Ha 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 ha.